So my name is Vladimir Mitev. I'm a Bulgarian journalist, and I like to call myself Romanian-speaking Bulgarian journalist, as I have been doing a lot of things related to journalism and relations between Bulgaria and Romania. I'm now working for one of the national media in Bulgaria, but I'm also the correspondent of Radio Romania for Bulgaria. And I also have some media which I call cross-border ones, like my personal blogs. Like, for example, I have a blog which writes all its articles in English, Bulgarian, and Romanian. It's called The Bridge of Friendship, after the name of the bridge next to my city where I live, Ruse. It's a city on the Danube River. On the other side of the river is a Romanian city, and Bucharest is just 70 kilometers away.
So, Vladimir, we invited you on this program, obviously, to tell us a little bit about how politics are made in Bulgaria and what kind of influences are in Bulgaria, and to tell us a little bit about the political life in Bulgaria. So, obviously, the first question is, how is politics made in Bulgaria? What influences decisions and what influences politicians? What is politics, basically?
I think it's fair to say that politics is a game of money in Bulgaria. It's very obvious, for example, now in the local elections. In my city, Ruse, I have the feeling basically we have some important influential businessmen at local level, and they just negotiate between themselves through politics, through elections, the balance of forces, let's say. And in one case, there is a lawyer of one of these influential businessmen who is the candidate for mayor. In another case, maybe it's a little bit more nuanced, but still, I believe important business interests associated with one refinery in Ruse are also interested in having a loyal politician, etc. So if we switch to national level, maybe it's even again clear. There has been this IT financial money on one hand. There has been some money which are considered to be a little bit more oligarchical, let's say, a little bit more dependent on, as they say, clientelist influence in society. And that is democracy in a way is oligarchy, in short. So people who don't have business interests, people who don't hate some of the tendencies, they're discouraged to vote, because you're advised to vote against somebody. Usually you're not voting for a project. I don't see even now at the local elections, be it in Sofia or in Ruse, some strategy, vision, something which has been made on the basis of research, like a political proposal with figures and calculations. Basically, we have labels, different candidates label in different way. So you just assign your vote to somebody whose label maybe sounds okay for you.
All right. At the same time, we see through the last elections in Bulgaria a very polarized society. A lot of different fractions not able to work with each other. What does that show you? What can you say a few words about that?
First of all, we are really a society based on in-groups. I can recommend a podcast I did with David Bissett, a Scottish person living in Bulgaria for decades, who is very knowledgeable on social issues. So we discussed with him, and basically that's also his point. Bulgaria is based on in-groups, or as we call in the Balkans, mafias. Even though mafia sounds criminal, it's not exactly in this sense, but basically we live through groups, which and society is kind of competition of these groups. That is, let's say, on social level. And on political level, indeed, we had for a long time this so-called stabilocracy. This is how various one-person regimes, let's say, in our region were called, like Vučić, Gruevski in Macedonia, and Borisov in Bulgaria. In 2020, protests against Borisov started. Eventually, he was taken down, but the process of replacement of Borisov with some new formula of governance took a lot of time, as you said. So I skip a lot of developments. Maybe we could return to them even in the talk which we have with our public later. But let me just say that now we have this polarization between two, I think, relatively clearly formulated poles. On one hand, we have a government which is clearly pro-European Commission. It has as Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs a former European Commissioner. So it is a government which follows, in my view, very well, very strictly the line which European Commission has for Bulgaria, or even maybe for the regional politics. And on the other hand, there is, I think, this tendency which is sovereignist. Basically, these are, again, state elites, maybe even in the same institutions in which the government is made of, but they also have some understanding that sometimes the interests of the European Commission are not exactly the same as the interests of the local autochthonous, let's say, allies in Bulgaria. And now there are different politicians or parties who play the role of opposition or try to appeal to this sovereignist tendency. Maybe the most visible one is President Rumen Radev, but there are also other smaller parties, for example. There are media, there are public speakers, opinion makers who appeal to this tendency and keep it alive. This polarization now is something which characterizes Bulgarian politics. And it is tempting when you enter in it, but maybe a little bit unprepared. It's tempting to take a side. But I think as an intuition, let's say, it's always good to think what will be in the future, not only what is now.
And especially in terms of like foreign policy, there's been a lot of division, obviously, between Rumen Radev, who you mentioned, who is the current president, and the government. Can you tell us a little bit about the Bulgarian foreign policy in general, and maybe also this case?
Yes. First of all, after this government was formed, after the elections of April 2023, it took an openly pro-Ukrainian stance. So Bulgaria supports Ukraine in different ways. For example, it was, maybe our listeners know that there was some resistance to Ukrainian agricultural imports in our region, which was even strong in Poland before the elections in Poland and in other countries. So Bulgaria took a voluntary decision to eliminate that ban. And that is just one example. Also, 100 blindated machines have been agreed to be sent to Ukraine. And there are various forms of military cooperation which are discussed or being already implemented. So that is, let's say, the line of the government. And on the other hand, as I have already had the occasion to say, we don't know what will be the final outcome of the war in Ukraine. And I believe that is the Bulgarian state's position as well. It's not, even if the government is doing the right things, let's say, from the point of view of Western Europe, but also there is this part of society and the country which is prepared for a moment when Russia may have to be re-engaged. So it is even, I believe, something which is discussed in Western circles, that this war at some moment will end. And we have to be prepared for any outcome of the war.